What's kind of interesting about set 11 is that the actual set mechanic can be surprisingly tame. Encounters don't really influence the game as much as a lot of players had feared. Now don't get me wrong, there are definitely high impact encounters, but so far it just feels like we're just making a decision between a temporary giant slayer or a redemption. But I think nobody can argue that Riot has been cooking hard with the new augments, so for this video let's go over some of the new augments and why some of them are already nerfed into the ground. For starters, we have a bunch of new hero augments. One of them is a bit more crazy than the others. The augment Lucky Paws grants you a 2-star Kobuku that deals 300% more damage and also gives you 1 gold for every unit that he takes down himself. This augment has quickly risen to become a fan favorite, but honestly it also just might be because Kobuku is extremely powerful without his augment. His permanent HP gain will likely cause issues in the future as well, but man, the way you can accelerate your economy and then go for a 3-star Kobuku together with the other bruisers is truly insane. It can be surprisingly easy to already reach 50 gold in stage 2, and finding at least 4 bruisers should never be an issue. For items, I've already seen a lot of different stuff. For example, you can try something like a BT and Titan's Resolve, which can make him farm more gold just with auto attacks, or I mean, you can also just go for the classical bruiser items like Dragon's Claw and Redemption, and he will act more as your main tank and you can maximize his healing later on. If you get your hands on a bruiser emblem, then it's not uncommon for him to break the 10,000 HP barrier, making him without a doubt the tankiest unit in the game right now. Though at some point you do have to be a bit careful about enemies running Set as his counter, but as long as you pay attention to his positioning, then usually this shouldn't become a problem. He also stays surprisingly relevant in the late game because his ability damage scales with HP, so yeah, you can watch him one-shot the enemy units after every cast. There are also some other great combinations with augments like Heavy Hitters or Well Fed, or maybe some Ink Shadow items like Tattoo of Protection. In my game I did try out the Tattoo of Vitality, but honestly this one felt a bit useless because in the late game he doesn't really do much outside of dancing and the occasional one-shot, and he's not going to be auto-attacking that much. For now, the other hero augments aren't as impressive, but Riot is currently working on them, so yeah, this might change in the future. I do have my hopes up for the Ethereal Blades that allows for a ranged Shen build, and I pray that it becomes somewhat viable, as I absolutely loved playing Shen carry in set 8 and I wouldn't mind reliving some of those memories. Next up, let's talk about an augment that is a pretty good contender for being one of the strongest augments that ever existed, and Riot already nerfed it into the ground. It is not a prismatic, in fact it's the silver augment Fine Vintage. It looks unsuspecting at first, but this augment is absolutely ridiculous, and here's why. Initially, this augment gave you a support anvil after leaving a completed item on your bench for only a single round. Now, ever since support items became their own category, they were intended to be more powerful because Riot did make it more difficult to access them. When I first saw this augment, obviously I just wanted to collect a bunch of Zephyrs and remove the enemy frontline like in the good old days. But somebody in my chat had a slightly better idea. There is one support item in particular that was way more powerful than all the other ones, especially if you managed to find it early: the Needlessly Big Gem. This item was so powerful that Riot had to remove it as an early option from the support cache augment, because not only does it have a crazy combat effect, increasing the damage of your entire team, it was also able to print a significant amount of gold based on the amount of units that survived the first half of the fight. This allowed you to reach higher interest thresholds early into the game, which would heavily accelerate your economy. Sadly, it looks like Riot finally had enough of this item and decided to remove the gold gain in return for a slightly higher combat buff. I mean, I can't really argue against this decision, conclusion, considering the influx of support items that we have in set 11. Just to showcase how dominating this strategy was, in this game I was able to reach 2 3-star legendaries with the help of the bonus gold, and I think it's safe to say this was my favorite game of set 11 so far. What the fuck? One augment that also shouldn't be missing from this list is Everything Must Go. This augment can range from being the most broken or the most useless augment, all depending on how you utilize it. Being able to buy every unit for free, but receiving no gold for selling a unit can quickly create a headache because you will be playing against all of your natural instincts throughout the entire game. For example, you should definitely keep a full bench the entire time and collect all the expensive units that you come across. Find as many upgrades as you can and play your most powerful board so you can safely reach higher levels and gain access to constantly better units. It's not uncommon for you to end up with a bunch of 3-star tier 4 or even tier 5 units as your win condition, and it will be interesting to see how this augment will develop over time, or if Riot just straight up removes it from the game and never brings it back. If you ever come across this augment, then there are 2 more tips that I want to give you in advance. While I already mentioned how you should keep your bench full, this becomes even more important for PvE rounds. If you pick up any of the orbs that spawn units on your bench, then you effectively lose all of their value because you don't get any gold from selling them. By blocking your bench, the orb units will now transform into gold, which is definitely the preferred outcome. I'm not sure if it will continue to work like this, but at least at the making of this video, you actually need to have some gold in your bank to be able to buy the units in your shop. This can result in some frustrating moments where you really want to finish that 1 3-star unit, but you can't sell your board or bench for more rolls, and once you bring yourself below 5 gold, you aren't able to buy out the shop anymore. Wait, dude, I can't buy her. For the last augment, I was contemplating to talk about 2 for 1, but I feel like I already said everything that I wanted to say in my initial preview video about set 11. So instead, there's another augment that I really want to talk about, and it's called Trash to Treasure, also known as the little brother of What the Forge. Which one of these augments is actually better, and is there a reason to take it? Now, while What the Forge is an RNG augment, it is not weak by any means. In fact, it was utilized by the world champion in his last game, but you can't deny that the RNG factor is quite high, and it's pretty easy to get screwed over to the point that you regret taking this augment. The saving grace for What the Forge truly lies in the bonus HP that it grants for each artifact that you put on a unit. There used to be a patch where this bonus HP wasn't granted, and after it was fixed, What the Forge immediately became super powerful. Trash for Treasure doesn't have this mechanic, but it does offer you another advantage. You can choose which items you want to reforge. This is rather useful because while artifacts are without a doubt quite powerful, there are some item effects that you definitely want to keep. For example, you can keep your Infinity Edge or Jeweled Gauntlet and continue to have access to Spell Crit, which is a powerful effect that most carries do want to keep. Artifacts also currently don't have any means to reduce armor or MR ever since Obsidian Cleaver became a support item. With Trash for Treasure, you can keep your Static Shiv, Ionic Spark, Even Shroud or Last Whisper, and you might have a much easier time in the mid game. While you can sort of include Sunder and Shred effects with the help of units like Aatrox, Aphelios, Alune, Kale or Irelia, these units might not fit perfectly on your board, and the effect might often occur too late because it tends to be tied to their ability. In a lot of scenarios, it's simply preferred to reduce the enemy defenses right from the start. Augments definitely have come a long way since their introduction, and it's still cool to see that Riot has a lot of creative ideas to bring more variety into TFT. This is also one of the reasons why playing on the PvE at the very beginning can be so much fun, because you get to experience effects that are so powerful that they will never ever make it to the live server. But chances are that you might currently be stuck in the queue to get onto the PvE server, so why not let me know in the comments which one is your most and least favorite augment of set 11 so far. I hope you learned something, and see you next time.